All right. So this evening, I'm going to do something a little bit different, as Rabbi Steve mentioned. In the past, during this part of the service, members of our congregation have shared a slice of their life story with us. And I believe that these stories have given us more of a sense of community as we get to know more about some of our members and the life experience that has helped to shape who they are today. But what I'm going to do is to read a short story. It's a story that I wrote a few years ago on a Yom Kippur afternoon. It was inspired by one of those memories that I think all of us have of some seemingly trivial event in our early years that for some reason sticks with us for our whole lives. I don't remember this particular event in great detail, but what I do remember is that I was in the car with my father when I was quite young. It was dark, and as we were traveling along, I noticed a few radio towers and saw red flashing lights on them. I was curious as to what they were, so I asked my dad. And the answer that he gave me, well, it was ridiculous, and it made no sense. Of course, my father had all the answers, right? I mean, he knew everything. But since the answer he gave me didn't make sense, I concluded that it wasn't that he didn't know the answer. Instead, I figured that he was just messing with my head. And at the time, all I took away from that exchange was I had a dad that liked to mess with me. But the memory of that exchange never left me. As I began writing this story, I had no idea what the memory now meant for me or why it had stuck with me for so many years. I just knew that I needed to do something with it, so I began to write. And as I got deeper into writing the story, its meaning began to come clear to me, and I was able to conclude it in a way that was actually quite satisfying. I hope that at least some of you will also find meaning in this story. It's short, it's sweet, and it's really quite simple. Even if you don't agree with the message I found in it, I hope that it will help you to get to know me a little bit better. So here's the story. A convertible roadster, top down, navigates a country road in upstate New York. The air is clear and unseasonably warm for a mid-October evening. The early autumn scent of newly fallen leaves is sweet. As the evening sky darkens, brilliant stars emerge over the gently rolling hillsides and meadows. There is no moon this night, leaving only the twinkle of starlight to paint the sky. It is a most wonderful rush of wind and time for a father and his young son of 5 or 6 years as the growl of the car's engine sends them along as if on a rocket through space. The car turns onto a gravel road heading upward towards the crest of a hill. At the peak, the car comes to a stop. "Let's have a look," the father says to the boy. They both get out of the car, and the father picks up his son and puts him on his shoulders. To the east, across the valley, they see another hill much like the one on which they stand. On the top of that hill, a radio tower spikes upward into the night sky. On the tower are 3 flashing lights, spaced evenly upward, marking their height above the ground, with the highest one at the very top. "Hey, Dad," the boy cries, "look at that tower. We're a tower too." The boy then wrinkles his brow in wonder. "But what are those flashing lights for, Dad?" The dad replies, "Why, those are there so low-flying airplanes will see them in the dark, and so can avoid crashing into the tower." This answer, while sensible to the boy, does not altogether satisfy his curiosity. "But what is the tower for, Dad?" the boy continues. "Well," responds his father, "the tower is there to hold up the lights, of course." The boy turns quiet and frowns as he ponders this answer. Even to his young mind, this seems not to be an answer at all. How can it be that a tower is built for the sole purpose of supporting a flashing light, whose sole purpose is to protect the tower in the first place? It makes no sense, and certainly from this boy's perspective. seems only meaningless and absurd. The father then lowers his son to the ground, and still frowning, the boy climbs back into the car. They start back down the road leading to the bottom of the hill. After another mile or so, the boy turns back to the starlit sky and feels the now cooler air as it caresses his skin. A smile begins to return to his face as the tower is forgotten. He turns to face his father and feels happy as his father smiles back at him, and he finds himself back in that rocket ship, just him and his dad navigating that country road under the stars. So, in talking it over with Rabbi Steve, he thought I needed to provide some kind of discussion as to what this story is about for me. He found some layers of meaning that I hadn't even thought of, at least not consciously, so it probably can invoke different interpretations for different people. My wife Nancy, for instance, saw the tower as representing a higher power, and the lights as representing us. And the story leaves it up to the reader to decide if the lights were created so the tower has something to hold, or if the tower is there so the lights can be held up. Rabbi Steve found meaning in the juxtaposition between the man-made structure of the tower and the natural world imagery found in the story. I think even closer to my own original experience, he also noticed the curiosity of the boy and the father's need to respond. Perhaps the father didn't know the answers, but he felt he needed to provide something anyway. The story leaves that ambiguous. For me, the story brings to mind how meaning in life is really a matter of perspective. If we look from within, that is, from within ourselves, within our families, or within our communities, meaning and purpose is really pretty easy to find. From the towers and from the lights perspective, the father's answers to the boy's questions make perfect sense. The tower is there for the lights, and the lights for the tower. By parallel, the boy is there for the father, and the father for the boy. The boy really didn't need more than that for his smile to return. It's only from the boy's perspective towards the tower that the father's answers didn't make sense. The boy was looking at things from without. From that perspective, he assumed that the tower must have had a creator with a purpose of its own. Of course, I know now that the tower did have a creator with a purpose. Perhaps we do too. But for me anyway, it's only when we look from a perspective outside of ourselves that we need to believe that, or to search for it. Again, speaking for myself, it's not that I believe that there is nothing greater than ourselves. It's just that I don't need to look beyond ourselves to find meaning and purpose.
Thank you, Dan, very much.